The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. A Manta Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast icon hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizong leggings? Wait. Are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene, once again flying solo this week. My co-host Christopher Golden is on vacation, but he will return next week. If he was here, he would of course say, Excelsior, true believers. Today, as promised, we are going to cover some of the other incarnations of everyone's favorite non-team. Now, as we've said on previous shows, Defenders Dialogue is our focus is Bronze Age Marvel, the comic books of the 1970s and 1980s, particularly the Defenders and all the books that can be considered offshoots of the Defenders. We've already gone through the entire Defenders series. We've focused on various issues of Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2-in-1 that featured the Defenders. We've done Gargoyles miniseries. And next week, we'll be starting with the Champions, which features a number of members in its roster that were also Defenders. This week, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a history of what happened to the Defenders after the Bronze Age. I'm not going to do a blow-by-blow analysis of every issue or anything like that. We're gonna do a history lesson for those of you who want to know more about the Defenders and the eras of the book that we are not covering on the show. So when we last ended, it was with New Defenders issue 152. Peter Gillis and Don Perlin. As you'll remember, Moondragon came back under control of the Dragon of the Moon. And half the team died. Valkyrie died. Gargoyle died. Everybody died. Kyle Richmond, a.k.a. Nighthawk, had been very dead for a long time before that. He died back during J.M. DeMatteis's run. And the remaining members, Beast and Iceman and Angel, went off to form X Factor. So what happened? Well, after that, Nighthawk came back to life. Gargoyle came back to life. Valkyrie came back to life. They all came back to life in short order. In fact, Peter Gillis once said in an interview that killing the non-mutant members of the team was a directive from editorial, and the reason editorial told him to do that was they wanted to free up the mutants to use an X Factor. Almost immediately after that final issue of New Defenders, you see the other Defenders starting to be brought back to life. If you heard that in the background, that is my cat acting like a maniac. You saw them come back to life in the pages of Solo Avengers, Strange Tales Volume 2, issues 5 through 7, Doctor Strange's new miniseries, etc. So they were brought back to life. Nighthawk was brought back to life through different means. We may at some point actually cover the Nighthawk miniseries, so we'll get into that at that time. But after everybody's back, in 1990, the original Defenders are reunited in the pages of the Incredible Hulk 370 and 371. This was written by Peter David, in my opinion, the best writer the Hulk comic book has ever known. Uh, I would say DeMatteis and Gerber wrote him very well in the Defenders, but I'm talking about solo Incredible Hulk. Uh, and basically, Hulk has gone evil, and Doctor Strange and Namor have to penetrate his psyche. Uh, it was revealed during that run that the prophecy, of course, you'll remember from listening to this show, there was a prophecy that if Doctor Strange, Namor, the Hulk, and Silver Surfer continued to join together as the Defenders, Earth would be destroyed. Well, it turns out that prophecy was a hoax. Um, so the three of them are then joined by the Silver Surfer in a story that was called The Return of the Defenders, and that ran through the annuals that year in 1990. It ran through Incredible Hulk Annual 18, Namor the Submariner Annual 2, Silver Surfer Annual number 5, and Doctor Strange Annual number 2. Then, in 1993, somebody at Marvel said, well, we don't have a regular book called The Defenders. We ought to revive the brand. So they came up with the Secret Defenders. Now, the Secret Defenders, once again, harkens back to the idea that Doctor Strange is a dick. But this is more like a superhero version of Charlie's Angels, really. What happens is Doctor Strange decides that first of all, it's the 90s, not my favorite era of comics, certainly not the Bronze Age, and one of the reasons why we're not featuring the Bronze Age on this show. But Doctor Strange, whenever he thinks the world is in danger, he uses this magical deck of tarot cards to determine which superheroes he should pick to help him battle the coming evil. So the Secret Defenders, anybody could be a Secret Defender. Wolverine, Spider-Woman, War Machine, Ant-Man. We did see the return of some previous Defenders. Iceman, for example, is in there. Trying to remember who else. I can't remember who else, but we saw several Secret Defenders that were previous Defenders. Hulk was in there. Ghost Rider. Now I'm remembering. I'm looking at my notes here. Spider-Man, who, of course, appeared with the original Defenders many times. So yeah, this was Doctor Strange's Secret Defenders. But then later on, Doctor Strange forces Dr. Druid to take over for him. He doesn't ask him. He doesn't say, hey, I got other stuff going on. I can't leave the Secret Defenders. No, he forces him to take over the Secret Defenders. And at that point, it's Dr. Druid and a character named Shadow Woman. And another character named Cadaver. And the three of them become like the main Defenders. And they operate out of Dr. Druid's Sanctum Sanctorum in Boston. Then Dr. Druid gets the shits of leading this group, and he summons a demon, fakes his own death, and then disbands the Secret Defenders. So once again, that's the end of the Defenders. How bad do you have to be for the leader of your team to fake his own death? If that's not weird enough, Thanos. Everybody remembers Thanos. Thanos also assembles his own team of Secret Defenders. It included the Super Skrull, Nitro, Rhino, and Titanium Man. Of course, Rhino, no stranger to the Defenders. He's fought the Defenders before, but then he was a Defender. Then comes what is, in my opinion, the low point of post-Bronze Age Defenders history. In 2001 and 2002, Marvel announced a brand new Defenders series written by Kurt Busiek, and everybody was like, all right, awesome. Illustrated by Eric Larson. And people my age went, if you were a young person in that era, then Larson's art probably spoke to you. I was not a fan of the 90s style art, particularly that of Eric Larson. I'm not imputing the man himself. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I've never met him. I'm not a fan of his art. So that series lasted 12 issues. In the entire series, Yandroth was the big bad. They did bring back the Headmen. Uh, we didn't see Nebulon. We didn't see Elf with a Gun. We didn't see Null the Living Darkness. But we did see the Headmen, and we did see Yandroth. As I said, Yandroth was the big bad guy. And what he does, he tricks the original Defenders, meaning Doctor Strange, Namor, Hulk, and Silver Surfer, into forming this group called the Order. And the Order's mission is to save the world by controlling it. So basically, Hulk, Doctor Strange, Surfer, and Submariner take over planet Earth in an effort to save it. They are stopped by Hellcat, Nighthawk. As I said, Nighthawk had come back to life by then. Valkyrie, again, had come back to life by then. Um, and this actually, the Order then, Defenders ran issues 1 through 12, and then the Order ran another 6 issues. The Order is far superior to Busiek and Larson's Defenders. That's really all I can say about that. I don't want to be a dick on this show. I'm not Doctor Strange. I'm not going to sit here and bash it. But yeah, if you're a fan of Bronze Age Defenders, there is not much to like about that series other than you get to see the Headmen and you get to see Yandroth. Then came Defenders Indefensible in 2005, which we talked about here on the show just last week. After that came what I think is one of two, in addition to Defenders Indefensible, one of the other two really good post Bronze Age Defenders shows or comics. The first one is The Last Defenders. That came out in 2008. It was written by Joe Casey. Now, you need to understand what was taking place in the Marvel Universe at the time. We had the Civil War, where heroes fought heroes over something called the Superhuman Registration Act, where anybody with a superpower needed to register with the U.S. government. Nighthawk, registered with the government, became licensed. Tony Stark, a.k.a. Iron Man, was put in charge of this initiative. So Tony Stark calls a meeting with Nighthawk. He says, I'm starting this new thing called the Initiative. Every state in the United States of America is going to have its very own superhero team that, patrol that area. We're giving you New Jersey, and you're going to lead a new team of defenders. And I thought Casey really honored the Bronze Age series here. He has Nighthawk argue for, Devil Slayer and Hellcat, characters like that. But Tony Stark says, no. I'm going to pick who you get. So Nighthawk ends up with a team consisting of Blazing Skull, Colossus from the X-Men, and She-Hulk. As I said, they're assigned to New Jersey, and what happens next is just chaos. It's one mishap after another. Eventually, Tony Stark disbands the team for incompetence, but Kyle Richmond goes behind Tony Stark's back and founds another team of Defenders. This team still includes She-Hulk, but he brings in the Son of Satan, stepping in for Doctor Strange. He brings in Krang, who's another Atlantean warlord, standing in for Namor, and he hires this S.H.I.E.L.D. agent to be the new Nighthawk. So very, it's all collected. Marvel has released it in trade paperback. I believe it's on Marvel Unlimited, and you can buy the back issues for really cheap. The Last Defenders, definitely worth checking out, particularly if you're a fan of Nighthawk and if you're a fan of some of the more zany issues of the Defenders, like Defender for a Day or J.M. DeMatteis's Dr. Seuss epic, stuff like that. Following that, in 2009, at the time in the Hulk, we had the Hulk, which was Banner, and we had Red Hulk, which was General Ross. Well, Red Hulk assembles a counter team of supervillains, and he calls them the Offenders. And they're, basically they're the arch enemies of the Defenders. So instead of Doctor Strange, we have Baron Mordo. Instead of the Silver Surfer, we have Terrax the Tamer, who was also a Herald of Galactus. Instead of Namor, we have Tiger Shark. And then the Defenders and the Offenders end up fighting. We then come to one of the lowest points in modern Marvel history, and that is the Fear Itself storyline, which was one of these big event comics. It's one of the worst received big event comics Marvel's ever done. It ranks right up there with the much loathed Secret Wars 2. Uh, Both critics and fans did not like it. Sales were bad, but one good thing about Fear Itself, we got to see the Defenders come back. This time it was in a series called Fear Itself: The Deep, which I believe ran 4 issues or 6 issues. In that storyline, Doctor Strange forms a new version of the Defenders with Hulk's daughter, Lyra, Namor, a former X-Man named Loa, and the Silver Surfer. And what they do is they fight Atuma, who fought the Defenders. One notable thing about Fear Itself: The Deep, many past Defenders appear in the last issue. You get to see Gargoyle, you get to see Son of Satan, you get to see the regular Hulk, Devil Slayer, etc. So it's notable for that. Um, it then led to what I think is another low point in post Bronze Age Defenders history. That is the 2011 Defenders series, written by Matt Fraction, drawn by Terry Dodson. The lineup that time features Doctor Strange, Red She-Hulk, which they couldn't even use regular She-Hulk. They got to use Red She-Hulk. Namor, the Silver Surfer, and Iron Fist. It's a whole long, convoluted thing. At some point, Black Cat, Nick Fury, and Ant-Man end up joining the team. Sales were not good. It was canceled after issue 12. The only really notable thing for it is, remember we said earlier in this show that the prophecy was supposed to be a hoax? Well, Fraction undid that. The prophecy was an actual thing again. And, the whole series revolves around how that reunion of the original 4 Defenders has set off a chain of events that is going to lead to the destruction of the universe. In the final issue, Doctor Strange changes the past so that reunion never happens, and it erased all the events of the 2011 series. Again, it's a weak point in the Defenders' overall saga. Uh, it's there only for the completists. No offense against Matt Fraction, but his writing has a sort of quirky hipster quality. He'd be great on a something like Doom Patrol. But what he was trying here just didn't work for me. Quirky is good. Steve Gerber was quirky, but his incarnation of the Defenders does not work for me. Next, spinning out of Fear Itself in 2013, because remember, 2011 we have 2 teams of Defenders. We have Matt Fraction's Defenders, and we have Fear Itself: The Deep Defenders. 2013, we see the Fearless Defenders. Along with the last Defenders, I think this is probably the best post-Bronze Age incarnation of the team. This was written by Cullen Bunn, artwork by Will Sliney. It's an all-female team of Defenders. It centers on Valkyrie and Misty Knight from the pages of Luke Cage and Power Man and Iron Fist. They are the main team members. Also, Moonstar from X-Men and New Mutants, she's a member. Clea makes a return. Elsa Bloodstone, the Frankie Ray version of Nova. So it's a really interesting take on the Defenders. Dives deep into Valkyrie. I think it is Marvel's best take on Valkyrie since J.M. DeMatteis. If you're a Valkyrie fan, if you're a Defenders fan, I really urge you to seek it out. Seek out the Fearless Defenders. And once again, it's all been collected. Very easy to get. Then in 2017, just a couple years ago, we had the new Defenders comic book series featuring Daredevil, Luke Cage, both of whom were in fact Defenders, Iron Fist, who was a Defender, and Jessica Jones. And this was, of course, based on the Netflix television series version of the Defenders. Then, finally, as we talked about many episodes ago, last year, 2018, we saw a new 5-part crossover storyline involving Hulk, Namor, Doctor Strange, and the Silver Surfer. That was called The Best Defense. Haven't read it, couldn't tell you what it was about. So there you have it. As promised, there is a rundown of everything that happened with the Defenders after the Bronze Age ended. As I said, I really encourage you to seek out The Last Defenders and The Fearless Defenders if you really want to see some good adaptations of this team post Bronze Age. And of course, Defenders Indefensible, which we did a whole show about last week. Next week, we're going to start the Champions. Chris and I are going to cover issues 1 through 3. We're going to do the entire series. The Champions only lasted, I believe, 25 issues, so it's not going to be a 2.5-year effort like covering the Defenders has been. But we will cover the Champions. As I said, you'll see many Defenders show up in the pages of the Champions. And after that, we've begun discussions of what we're going to be covering after the Champions as well. So we hope you'll tune in next week as a new era begins. And speaking of tuning in, if you enjoy this show every week, you might also enjoy the Horror Show with Brian Keene. That's a show I host every week where we interview the biggest names in the horror genre. Authors, actors, directors, musicians, video game developers. If they're involved in this business, we interview them. You might also enjoy Three Guys with Beards. That's a show that Chris does every week with Jim Moore and a rotating cast of co-hosts. Both of those are available wherever you listen to Defenders Dialogue, and they're all made possible by our network, the Project Entertainment Network. If you'd like to sponsor Defenders Dialogue, go to projectentertainmentnetwork.com, click contact, and follow the instructions. While you're there at the website, you might also consider picking up a Defenders Dialogue t-shirt or a coffee mug or a bumper sticker. Let everybody know that you make yours Marvel, or at least you make it Defenders Dialogue with Christopher Golden and Brian Keene. That's it for this week. In honor of Chris, I send you home with an Excelsior, true believers. We'll see you back here next week for the start of the Champions. Bye.
You're listening to American Top 40. More tragedy in the news today. Kim Kardashian has a new baby. What the hell? There's nothing good to listen to. Hey, wait, what's this?
Anything moist. You gotta roll that out.
See, it makes me do weird things. I don't like it.
God damn it.
I'd be going down on myself.
Shit.
Hey guys, it's Bill,
Mick,
Maya.
and Junior.
from the Unsupervised Podcast.
Check us out every Thursday on the Project Entertainment Network.
Take a break from the stress of the world and come have a laugh with or at us.
Bill.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows
Three Guys with Beards, Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybury, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast, Igon,
Brian Keene of The Horror Show, Chuck Buda, and Armand Rosamilia of The Mando Method,
Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans,
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith,
John Urban, sick of ink stains,
Bizung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.